Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Krishna Priya. This is the Human Colony Hucolo Webinar. It's Saturday, the 27th of July, 26th of July. I never know the day. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Krishna Priya. This is the Human Colony. And I also never can remember to turn off the YouTube stream as it opens, so we'll start over. This is Krishna Priya. This is Human Colony Hucolo Webinar. It's the 26th of July, 2025. We have with us a very special guest. He's been on, but it's been a little bit. It's been since 2023. His name is Peter Dennis. He is an author and he's a channeling teacher. He writes about he's written about handwriting analysis, but he's also documented his many years of assisting channelers to connect to themselves and be able to channel beautiful information. He works with them in hypnotherapy type. Do you do hypnotherapy? Am I correct with
You're
them?
correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
he does hypnotherapy and allows them to sort of access and get out of their own way. But also over the years, he's learned so many things about how channelers work. What are their challenges? What are their blocks? And he's documented this in now 5 books over the last 20 some or even longer years. So it's a real honor to have you here and to pick your brain and learn your knowledge and understand what you're telling the world about what you've done, because there's so many people that are part of our Hucolo group, but also on the YouTube and out in the world that are interested in channeling, and they just don't even know where to start, really. So you can be that door for them.
Well, thank you first for the introduction and for welcoming me or having me come back. It's interesting that you sometimes get invited to a place and, you're honored and very grateful for it. But to be welcomed back again, I guess that tells you that you've done something reasonably right.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. So I just want to go through normally when we start, I just introduce who's in the room, but also we start with some blessings and announcements. So I'll do that first, and then we'll come back to you and get started if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, in the room today, I'm trying not to open the YouTube again. We have you, Peter. We have Adriana, I'm so sorry. Christine, Christy, Emmanuel, Joachim, Michael, Selesh, Wendy, and then in YouTube, people are coming in. So I will say hello to them, though I can't see their names yet because they haven't started commenting. But as soon as they do, we'll be able to tell you who's actually here. Languages of Lights is there. That's Wendy. So hi to Wendy. We have one announcement that in just about 4 weeks, 4 weeks from today, on Saturday, we will be doing the pendulum class. And that's the class I'll be teaching. It is a class learning how to basically use a tool, a divination tool, to help you with your channeling, help you with yes, no questions, use it as a energy checker to be able to use it in healing. There's just so many ways. It's really an extension of yourself, and it's about learning to trust your own biofeedback in your body that will help you to get answers and to get information. And it's a fascinating tool. I've used a pendulum for many, many, many years. I've had the same one forever and ever. And it's definitely a bond, and it's a tool that I pick up now that I just trust. And I feel like that's why it works so well for me, because I'm not questioning how I'm doing, what I'm doing, if it works, if it doesn't. And that's a good part of why it's working. So I thought we could pass on some of that knowledge. That was a request from Michael and some other people in the group to learn to work with mediums, to learn to work with a pendulum as a medium for the work that you're doing. And it can be applied to so many different modalities, no matter if you're doing healing or sound work or anything like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. If you're interested in that class, it's going to be on the 23rd of August, and you can write to classes@hucolo.org, and Angie will get your name and send you all the information. So the only thing you need for the class is a pendulum and an open mind. So hopefully you'll want to join that. All right, so we'll start with the blessing. We have Wendy and Christy, we'll do Wendy and then Christy if you can. And you can just go run right after the other.
Okay, that's fine. Also, I do know that I've got a Pleiadian, a green Pleiadian by the name of Aman coming through for light language, and he'll do a translation right afterwards.
Okay, but let's keep it.
It'll be short. Yeah, he's already said short. At nyoro firana ikyahiro no hishishtikiro nye iti ini heharana da nyoro akani itshiaranya atatara. Blessings and greetings to all of you. Remember to keep your hearts open. Remember to stay in love and unity. Remember to show kindness. Often you think of showing kindness to others. We say show some kindness to yourself. Such a blessing as it is to find your own golden ray, your own connection to love. Namaste.
Beautiful. Christy?
Thank you, Wendy. Karen, sorry. Ia kuata I shiuku uaka. Ia ta upuchiku uaka. Ia ta utushiku uaka. Ia ka ia kutuchiku uaka. Utushiku uaka. I kutuchiku uaka. Ia ushiku uaka. Namaste.
Do you have an interpretation of that or a feeling of what that was about?
No, I normally don't try interpret or read my light language. I just use the frequency and vibration, and it's coming from the heart.
Perfect. Okay, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Peter, let me put you on the big screen here so we can see you. All right, there you go. Can you still see me or no?
I can see you, but I'm going to move my camera just a bit so I can see you better. There we go.
I mean, I'm irrelevant at this point. I'll be only asking questions. So, but anyway, what I would like you to do, and if you would, is just take a few moments and share who you are, why you're here, but also what it is that you're doing and what is this sort of this passion that grew within you. Because what's very interesting is you're not a channel, correct?
I'm not an oral channeler yet.
Right. Yet. But this passion that has driven you has been one of really, interest, but also service, because you're helping people to connect to their inner truth, their inner knowing that they can, in fact, share, which is a beautiful path worker or path layer that you are, helping opening up paths for so many people, sort of at the, because a lot of people say they're interested in channeling and they become interested in themselves only channeling. And which is perfectly fine. But then to be someone who says, hey, I see a way that I can help these other people connect to this thing they feel called to do. I think that's a really beautiful service and seva, as they would say in India, selfless service that you're giving, offering, and supporting. So maybe you can talk about where that passion came from and how you're doing that.
Okay, that was a multi-part question there.
Basically, it's nice what you're doing, and I want to hear how you got there. That's the bottom line. Okay.
Well, my background basically has been in business. I have a couple of business degrees, and I spent most of my life, in boardrooms and bank towers and three-piece suits, and did the corporate thing for a lot of years until I retired at age 65, quite a few years ago. And I would say from from maybe teen years, I always had an interest and a curiosity about metaphysical things and read a lot. The Edgar Cayce books and Lobsang Rampa, and eventually got into Jane Roberts, who did channeling. When I retired, I became a hypnotherapist. And what prompted me to do that was in business, I was in the human resources field and did a lot of training. And one of the courses we had was goal achievement and goal setting. And I always thought if we could unleash the unconscious mind in some way, we could really achieve things. And the only way I knew to do that was through hypnosis. And so upon retirement, I took a course and became a certified hypnotherapist or consulting hypnotist. In doing that, I began to work with people who wanted to quit smoking, lose weight, overcome fears and things like that. I would say as about 5 or 6 years into it, people started asking about past lives and life purpose. And the past lives, you can regress people back under hypnosis to a past life, or many of them in some cases. I found 3 of my clients over a period of about 3 years. Each of them reported being incarnated on another planet. And that was something totally foreign to me. I couldn't believe that. And but after the third one, I thought, well, we better look into this. So I went to my files and I pulled out, I think it was 13 candidates who I thought first were good subjects for hypnosis. Secondly, we had done past life regression before. And thirdly, I didn't think they'd get spooked out too much if we were born on some other planet. So of the 13, I issued invitations to all of them. 6 responded saying they would be interested in meeting with me and pursuing this. Well, the first was Karen Ashby, who lives a little north of where I live, which is, in my case, I live about 30 minutes north of Toronto, in Ontario, Canada. Karen was with me. She was a good subject. We went into hypnosis and I took her back to a lifetime and started asking, what are you doing? And she said, I'm in my spaceship. I said, well, what are you doing there? And she says, we're monitoring Earth. I said, why would you do that? And they explained about the ascension process that we're going through, and they're here to help with a lot of others. But at some point in that conversation, it switched to we. And some of the other words just didn't seem, in my mind, to be indicative that I was dealing with one person. And it clicked. And so I asked, by any chance, are we channeling? And they said, yes. I said, well, who are you? They said, we're the Palladians. And from there, Karen very quickly became a really good channeler. She does all kinds of things now. She speaks with the matron of a herd of elephants in Africa. She can talk to the dog down the street, and she brings in the Sasquatch and all kinds. Mother Mary was her latest one, I think. Anyway, of the 6, 5 of them all began to channel. And I was kind of taking notes as to what I was doing, but basically it was just getting them relaxed, asking them to open as much as they could to a being of the light who would like to channel through them, 5th dimension of consciousness or higher. And we asked the ego and the analytical mind to just step aside and be the observers and assure them that everybody's safe, but just contribute by observing. And then we ask Archangel Michael to stand by and just ensure that it's only beings of the light that need come around. And so that led to where we are today. And as of today, I have helped 96 people become channelers. And I've worked in total with 120 channelers. The other 24 were all channeling before they met me. But I really do 3 things. I help people become channelers, but I also help channelers take their talents to the public if that's what they want to do. And thirdly, I disseminate information. You might imagine with 120 channelers, I've had quite a few conversations with some of these channeled beings. As a matter of fact, I reckon it's pretty close to 1,000. And so I've learned a few things, and that's basically the subject matter of the books I've written. And so I'm not sure if I answered all your questions, Karen, but that's kind of where I was and where I am today. And maybe you could take it from there.
Well, I think it's beautiful. I think about this woman, Karen, all of a sudden channeling the Pleiadians. Did she even know at that point what the Pleiadians were? Or
I don't think either one of us did. She might have. I had heard of them. I had heard of Barbara Marciniak, and one of my sisters years ago gave me a very scratchy tape of I don't know, somebody channeling Palladian or something purporting to be Palladian speaking.
Mhm.
I couldn't make much sense of it, but I had heard of Palladians, and of course, the Pleiades are the seven major stars in the Pleiades system that's in the constellation of Taurus, and our astronomers are aware of them, and they call them the Seven Sisters.
Right.
So, and there's planets around those stars. So, yeah, well, I had heard of them vaguely, but I didn't know much about them.
It's interesting they identify as Pleiadian when it's such a vast area of space. Do you know? Because the Pleiadian section is it's very huge. It'd be like being an Earthling, but then identifying as what is our star system? We're not part of the Milky Way, but we see the
Yeah,
Milky Way. We are
yeah,
part of the Milky Way. So if we identified as a Milky Wayian, if that would be a term. And it's interesting that they choose the vast area because they are so vastly different as beings, the Pleiadians.
yes. In relation to the whole Milky Way, the Palladian system is very tiny.
Right.
You could identify us as being part of the solar system of Gaia,
Right.
or Gaia is our planet in the solar system. There may be some other name I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many systems within systems.
So I guess my biggest question to you would be, and everyone, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. But I'd like to ask about your, well, we can go into the techniques of channelers, but I would like to know, since what you're writing about is what you've learned over the years. What is it that you've learned over the years from the channels? And maybe like your top 5 things or top few things that you find are either universal, completely new ideas. I'd like to know that. Something that's a completely different idea that changed you in some way that you hadn't actually considered before.
Well, I think a lot of people in the spiritual communities hear that we are God.
Mm.
And you say, wait a minute, how is that possible? I'm here, God is somewhere else, you're over there. It's very difficult to get our minds around that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been given a couple of analogies or metaphors that really help me to understand, yes, indeed, all is one and one is all. Here's the first one. This came from your friend Terry Rayner, actually, who was channeling the divine realm.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, imagine an ocean. And around the ocean are different containers. There could be a Coke bottle, a beer can, an oil drum, all around that ocean, there are an infinite number of containers, and every one of them is different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ocean fills those containers, and those containers go their separate ways. And over time, the containers begin to break down. They rust out or whatever, and the water finds its way back into the ocean. Now, the ocean is God. The vessels are our bodies, or the containers. And that God essence goes into those containers, us, and we go out and have our experiences and learn and whatever. And ultimately, the bodies decay and end, and the spirit goes back and source benefits from that experience and expands. So, yes, we are God. And the other analogy that helped me understand that is if you can imagine a large bonfire and it's throwing off sparks.
Mm-hmm.
Every spark has exactly the same essence as the bonfire, the same gases or whatever. Well, if God is the bonfire and we are the sparks, we have that God essence within us.
Yeah.
And
I've heard it described like the ocean, and even if you scoop up a tiny bottle of it, it's still ocean that you have there.
mm-hmm.
it's ultimately it returns to that ocean, but it's not, but actually it's never separate because everything also that surrounds it is part of it as well. So, but yeah, it's still a spark, it's still bonfire, even if it's just a spark that flew out of it. So that's a beautiful way to look
Well,
at it.
yes, and that's I guess maybe the answer to what did I discover that was new to me? The concept that we are all one, we are all source. Just having our own experience and contributing to the whole. It took a while to get my mind around that concept, but now I think it's there. Although I have to say, Karen, that anytime I think I understand something, there's always more.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Michael has a question for you. I'd like to go to him.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yes, out of all the ETs, or what do you find that was the most helpful beings or whatever throughout your your journey? And like I read a book a long time ago. It was Norma something Jawinsky, We the Arcturians.
Yes.
But what stuck out to you? Was it the Palladians? Was angels? Enlighten us with some of that, please.
Well, that's a rather subjective, or my response would be, yeah, well, the way I see it, sort of thing. Um, I guess the Palladians to me seem to be the closest to humans in that they bring good humor. They seem to give and take as we might. It's almost like you're having a conversation with your neighbors over the fence to the side. They're very close to us, and I think the Arcturians and the Andromedans might be as well. Maybe the Andromedans a little more so. But as you encounter beings with more, let's say, expanded consciousness, you get into the non-physical areas. You get the ascended masters and the archangels, and sometimes Source itself. Sometimes Source under other names. Divine Realm is one, and a couple others escape me at the moment. But as you deal with Source, I think the explanations in my case have been very clear, dumbed down, you might say, so that I understand them. And they come up with these analogies like the couple I just mentioned. They've been perhaps the most informative. But it's a tough question because I'm sure I've dealt with 70 or 80 different beings, and sometimes I just keep coming away from them saying, wow, that was amazing. And they were at the moment, or maybe they addressed a particular question in a very neat way. So I don't have a good answer for you. Was it Michael?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have a great answer for you, but I think as you ascend the levels of consciousness, you might get more. Now you can get more such that you just can't understand it. But I think in my experience, they've been the clearest. Jesus, for example, really very informative. There's a guy who doesn't wish to be revealed because his family is very against this, but he channels Jesus beautifully. And the first time I met Jesus this way, I said, I feel I should be on my knees, in your presence, sort of thing. And he said, no. He said, we're all branches of the same tree. And he said, nobody's better than anybody else. That was rather enlightening. And he's very clear about the things he speaks about, very clear. So, Michael, it ranges quite a bit. And I think if you got 10 people in the room and you ask them the same question, you get 10 different answers.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice talking to you. I'll let someone else, or thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions at the moment, but I have a million. So I want to go kind of early to the thing that you raised that you'd like to talk about book publishing and how that works, because I think that feels very relevant at the moment. But you had said that, well, let me let you say it. You said most channelers, you see a book, if that's the case.
Yeah, there's many channelers who I've encountered who either want to write a book, have written a book, or have been told by their beings they would be doing well if they wrote a book. In my opinion, having written 6 books at least, writing the book's the easy part. Publishing the book is very tricky, very time-consuming, very frustrating at times. And then selling the book is, I think, the most difficult of the, you might say, 3 phases: writing, publishing, and selling. With artificial intelligence, editing has become very simple and very easy and very, very good. This last book, I had nobody edit it, and I just ran it through ChatGPT, and so far nobody's found a flaw in it where they can in all the others. The publishing, it's easy to get it on Amazon. And but from there, it depends what formats you want to have your book in. Do you want paperback? Do you want hardcover? Do you want an ebook? Do you want an audiobook? I've chosen paperbacks, ebooks, and audiobooks. And right now, the audiobooks are outselling the other 2 substantially. Last year, it was clearly the leader. This year, it's even more so. I'd say 2 to 1, probably. Doing an audiobook is not that difficult. Initially, I started with pretty good microphone, a little mixing board, one computer to see my transcript on, the other one to put on, I guess I use Audacity. Apple people use GarageBand, but you can see the lines of recording. For every hour you spend recording, you need probably 2, maybe 3 hours to do the editing of the recording, because you make little sounds like, click your tongue or whatever, or just, heavy breathing. You got to get these out of there, or Amazon or Audible won't accept them. But I did find that the microphone that's in the webcam that I'm using right now is good enough. Audible has a laboratory, and they have a company called ACX that actually has this laboratory where you can do a recording, just a short one, send it in, and they will tell you if there is anything flawed about it, and if not, then it's acceptable to Audible. So I did that with my little recorder that's sitting on top of my monitor here, and it worked perfectly. So you don't need a lot of high-end electronics. Just a simple microphone, maybe the one your computer has built in, might be enough.
Right.
Yes, this is a long answer because your question kind of opened a can here, Karen. I'll try and be brief, but I would say if somebody has an interest, send me an email and we can have a chat, and I'll tell you a little more about it. But the ebooks and the paperbacks have to be formatted. You might use Microsoft Word or Apple Pages or something, and you do a document. You need to get somebody to put it in the size and shape that will be acceptable to Amazon or any bookstore. And that's tricky to do. Some people have done it themselves, but I've tried, and instead I just pay somebody. And right. It's about $1,500 Canadian to have to do that. You need somebody to do the graphic art for the cover. Now, these days, artificial intelligence might do that for you. And there may not be any cost. However, the cover has to have a spine, and the spine has to be the thickness that accommodates the exact number of pages that your formatted manuscript is going to take. And that's a tricky
Oh,
calculation.
that's very interesting.
Anyway, there's a lot to it. And the publishing, yes, Amazon is fairly straightforward, but there's lots of others besides Amazon, especially in the audiobook and ebook fields. There's Findaway Books. You can get it on Spotify. You can get it on a lot of places, and it just takes time and know-how to do that. So, as I say, if anybody is chasing this and wishes to, just send me an email, and I'll spend a little time and kind of walk you through some of the detail I've learned anyway.
Well, your website is peterdennis.com, correct? What is your?
Not quite. No, it's peterhdennis.com.
Peter H. Dennis.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about this. Peter H. Dennis at peterhdennis.com. Sorry about that. What is your email?
It's peterhdennis.com. 2 N's in Dennis.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you for that on the book. So all of the would-be authors, and Jim, one of our channelers, has now 2 books out. They did From the Universe with Love, which is a sort of compilation of many different channelings. And then they followed it up with another channeling book. And they've done quite well, but they're on Amazon. And also, there is an audiobook, I believe, for both of them, and you can get those on. Yeah, that's worked well. You know, it's so funny because I worked for a magazine, and we used to make these little books. And one of the things I did is a little graphic art on the side, and they just gave me the template to lay out the book, and the pictures were all selected. So I just had to sort of put everything in its place, but I never thought about the back. What is it called? The place on the spine.
The spine, yeah.
I just had a template, but I didn't really think that I would have had to adjust that. But the books were all like 130 pages, like every one of them. So they already know that. But I never thought about that having to get wider or narrower. It makes absolute sense, but I never actually considered it. So
yes, what I've been talking about too, Karen, is self-publishing. You know, there are very successful people who go through publishing. However, it's difficult to get a publisher interested in you if you don't have an agent. And an agent really doesn't like first-time authors. So it's kind of a catch-22. Most people just give up on that and decide to do it themselves. And that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a woman that's part of Hucolo called Bola, and she has a book out, and she's self-published through it's the offshoot of Hay House. And she now wish she had done it herself because because she's had to. The thing is, they publish the book for you, but you pay them.
Yeah,
you could have paid anyway. She would have paid it either way. You know, her book's doing quite well, actually, but it's all from her own effort. So, yeah.
Incidentally, Louise Hay is still somewhat active from the other side, and she has selected a particular channeler to carry on the torch.
Oh.
I can't reveal who or when or anything, but I think probably in the next 3 years, somebody else will be guided by Louise. And I'm not sure what detail, whether it's going to be Hay House 2 or even, a hint that it's Louise Hay. But Louise wants this to continue.
Well, she's a beautiful soul with a lot of vision. So that's perfect. Well, I look forward to whenever she decides to let us know she's still around, you know. Yeah. I was going to ask you a question. So someone in the YouTube chat said something that made me think of this question, but I actually kind of thought of it before. And I know it's a big question for a lot of people, but Bill in the YouTube says, I take prayer or meditation walks with my dogs in the morning, doggies, he said. I send a lot of love up and down and through the cosmos. I believe I'm countering dark energy with love and light energy. And one of the questions you always get from people when they start channeling is, how do you know? I know that you said it, you wanted a fifth dimensional being, you wanted it to be a positive being when you were helping them channel, but have you ever encountered any beings that are maybe less than positive and maybe more on the tricky side? That's how I say
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I have never encountered a dark one.
Mhm.
And they're out there, but I've had a couple conversations with Archangel Michael, and one of the channelers I'm working with channels him regularly, so I do get to touch base with him a fair bit. And I'm absolutely convinced he's standing guard and nobody's getting through him. However, I did once have a curious one come in,
Mm.
and it kind of got the channeler looking around, and it just seemed a little off to me. It wasn't saying anything. And I said, "Is there somebody here?" And I got a yes. "Are you of the light?" Yes. "Are you here to help?" No. And I said, "Would you please leave?" Okay. And they left. We talked to Michael after, and he said, yeah, they were they should have known better. He said they were like juveniles. They saw an opening and they popped in out of curiosity.
That might have been the case, or it could have been a being that was more like a deceased person who also just hanging around looking to see. It's just kind of they say if you open the door, but he wasn't negative, right? So he was just
Yeah.
he was like lost at Walmart, didn't know what aisle he was on.
Yeah. Well, apparently of the light, and as Michael said, he probably should have known better. But anyway, no harm done, and I've never encountered a dark one.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Have you, and Adriana has a question, but I'm going to ask you this because my great teacher, was a hypnotherapist as well. And in the, how do you say it? In the late 70s and 80s, she was very active. She's now passed on, unfortunately. But she did a lot with spirit attachment. Have you encountered that as a hypnotherapist?
Not to my awareness.
Okay.
That's kind of a fuzzy area. You can get fears, and these fears have energy.
Right.
And these energies may, in some cases, be a being or associated with a being.
Mm-hmm.
Come to think of it, yes, I did have something attached. And Michael and Raphael, two archangels, escorted this energy attachment away.
Mm-hmm.
Problem solved. And I don't know if it was a dark energy as much as maybe a lost energy or something. It just felt attached to this individual and wasn't easily letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the early days. I had almost forgotten that one.
Yeah, because I know that with her, like a lot of people would come through and, it could be like they suddenly got a personality change. They, suddenly had different likes than they had ever had in their life, and it usually was disruptive to them because it took them out of their norm. And it usually was a spirit attachment that needed to just be released. And it was always a kind of gentle process, but it was first identifying like, what is that had happened? But also too, the attachments could be thought forms, like you were saying, it could be anger, it could be, something that has its own energy, but that's now attached because you have a similar vibration, and then it's like a magnet and they just sort of start glomming on and just releasing those things. But she did that through hypnotherapy, and so I just wanted to know if you'd ever encountered that in your working.
As a hypnotherapist, no, I would not.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than that one instance. Incidentally, I initially started hypnotizing people to get them into a relaxed state so they could open up and start channeling. You don't need to be a hypnotist for this. All you want is for the client to be relaxed, and a guided meditation will get you to the same state. You know, the meditative state and the hypnotic state, as far as I can tell, they're identical. The difference is that with hypnosis, you've got a guy like me whose conscious mind is in the foreground and can react to what's going on and has an agenda and that sort of thing. So you can move the action along. But as far as the client is concerned, they're in a deeply relaxed state. Metabolism has dropped, brain waves have changed to alpha, the same chemicals flow. The unconscious has sort of come to the fore and the conscious mind drifts back. So I think anybody with a guided meditation script could get a client into a state of relaxation where they could open the channeling.
Okay, beautiful. Adriana has a question. Go ahead, Adriana.
I was hoping that you could speak about how student channelers, beginner channelers can practice different things they can do to practice.
Yeah. Well, I have a buddies list, I call it. It's got about 65 channelers on it with their contact information. And these channelers call each other up or contact each other and practice together. And secondly, they get to talk to another channeler as opposed to talking to me all the time. And that's very beneficial because channelers usually have doubts and questions. Is it them? Is it me? You know, that kind of thing. And talking to other channelers, they learn ways to get over that stuff. So the buddies list is one way. Another way is sometimes with just a recorder, get into a private place that's quiet and go into the state and bring them through. But before you bring them through, ask one or two questions. Turn on your recorder, drop down, bring them through, and hear the answer. And sometimes there have been people who might have a daughter or a sister or somebody who's very on board with all of this and will pretty much play the role of the facilitator. But the beings have all said, practice, 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 and the connection gets stronger and stronger, and the channeler's vibration increases. So yeah, practice is very important, and yeah, you find whatever ways you can. Was that enough, Adriana?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So for someone who's wondering, like, because we used to talk about channeling as a gift or a psychic thing as a gift, and then it was a way for people to say, I have this gift and you don't, you know, but it's for everyone, I feel. And so how do people sort of get over their idea that, oh, maybe I can't do this, as opposed to, yes, I can, this is something available to me. Have you found that there is that sort of self-doubt that comes along with channeling?
Yes. Young people usually explain to me that they've had some either psychic or just contact, you know, vivid dreams or astral travel or just feeling and even seeing other energies. So, you know, this tells me that they are spiritually awakening. They're probably well on the path and likely a good candidate. Now, people ask, can everybody or can anybody channel? And I usually respond by saying that's not the right question. The right question is, are people ready to channel? Because most people can channel and do. You know, I channel when I write. I channel sometimes when I speak. I channel light language, which makes no sense to me. it flows anyway, and I've been told that I soon will be an oral channeler, but that's not my mission right now. Yeah, people have these doubts, and even when they do start connecting and channeling, they continue to have doubts. Is that really somebody else, or is that me just making it up? Or because I'm pretty dozy in this relaxed state, is my mind playing tricks? And, they have those doubts for a while. And all I can tell them is just listen to the content, and over time, start to discern, is this the kind of thing you would say, or is this something somebody else would say? Is it helpful? Is it uplifting? Is it love-based? All that sort of stuff. And they can start to conclude for themselves. And I think they sort of slowly get closer and closer to saying, yeah, this is really channeling somebody else. But there are definitely doubts, and it's the exception when there aren't doubts.
So this is maybe a silly question, but it's something I've encountered, so I'd like to know. I've seen like there's some people that channel sort of really they're not literally on the ground. They may be on a ship, but they're contacting people who are alive now, walking around now on another planet or in another place, channeling those people who are more informational, but practical information. This is where I'm from. This is the life I'm living. This is what we're doing. And then you have higher beings who are more giving like more, spiritual advice. And so have you, and they're talking in broad terms of oneness and togetherness and growing as a person and as a spirit and, ascension. But have you encountered this sort of, I live here on, on this planet and sector this, and this is my job and this is what I do, and I have a family, or what are the different kind of beings that you've encountered with the 1,000 channels that you've talked to?
Well, I think you've pretty well described the range. I have spoken to the spirit of a rock.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? And I said, it must be awfully boring just being in a rock. And he said, no, I get out all the time. He said, I'm in the rock when the channeler, this apparently was a big rock at a cottage area near a lake. And the channeler used to come out and just sunbathe on it. And the channeler loved that, or the spirit of the rock loved that. And I asked, have you ever been a human? And he says, oh, yeah. He says, never again. What a rough ride that was. And then he said, well, wait a minute. Maybe my higher self has other ideas. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not doing it again. Yes. And I guess also, maybe I'm evading your question a little bit, but yes, I encountered somebody and I said, well, what is your job? And she says, I make new species of flowers that get to planet Earth.
Interesting.
And that was interesting. And then, yes, you get, as you get more consciousness, a rock to a plant, to an animal, to a human and beyond, you get more profound stuff, as you were describing. So yeah. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not. But,
yeah, it does. I mean, we've had, within our channeling, we've talked to like the mushroom collective and different, or trees and all kinds of different levels of consciousness that on a higher level are very, very conscious and very, very aware. But I just wondered, like, was there any being that sort of stuck out to you as sort of like friendly Joe ET, or being that maybe, or maybe an elemental or something like that, that you feel like, oh yeah, I could have a beer with this guy, or you know what I mean? Yeah.
There are some funny ones. The Palladians are probably like that. As I said, if they were your next door neighbor, you'd probably have them over for a barbecue. There was a little dragon that was born in northern Scotland in a cave in the physical. Now, his mother could be physical or spirit. He could only be physical in his infancy. And Karen Ashby channeled him, and his name was Sam, or he gave us that name anyway. We called him Baby Sammy. He would escape the cave when his mother wasn't vigilant, and he'd run around the hills of northern Scotland, and he found a house that had a child in it, a young girl who he had connected with in a previous lifetime and was interested in connecting with her again. But Sam's mom would come out and grab him, and I would tell him, look, Sam, I think it's good that you go out and experience the hills of Scotland and everything, but I'm not contributing to juvenile delinquency here. You got to listen to your mom and, stay sheltered in that cave until you, can drop your body and whatever. Anyway, we followed Sam for quite a ways. He became a very large dragon. I have a 2-story house, and he apparently is taller than that. He spent time on the Palladian spaceships learning, I don't know what, but he and another dragon named Max explained a fair bit about dragons, and they're in my previous book, that they did indeed live on Earth at one time. They never got along with humanity very much. Humans just wanted to kill them mostly. And so they finally just left, but they're back in the spirit. They're not back physically. They're working with energy lines around the planet, ley lines, and they're here to help. And apparently Nessie is actually a dragon and exists, but just likes it very deep in that loch in Scotland. But she does apparently come up for a breath of air every once in a while.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So interesting. Christy has a question. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dennis. Nice to meet you. I'm Christy. It's not much a question. It's just some experiences that Peter is bringing up for me as he's sharing his stories. Just on your last update there on Nessie in Scotland, I don't know if you're aware of a being called Zora in Hollow Earth.
I am not, no.
Yeah, Zora. I've been sort of connecting with Zora for the last, let's say, 20 years. Yeah, he has a webinar on a weekly basis. It's up online and that. Yeah, he's down in the core of Earth. And he spoke in one of his webinars, and he explained that Nessie is actually from the inside of Earth, and he comes up into the lake. Yeah, so all the sightings that we've had of Nessie down through the years is really interesting. And a lot of people have tried to fish him out of the lake, but they can't find it. But he goes back down into the core of Earth. Now, this is what Zora gave as an update, which I found really, really interesting. And just that update, I just wanted to give you there. But anyway, I just on the stone there, as you were speaking, for 20 odd years, I was sitting on a stone in the forest, and I used to go into the forest, and I went into the forest and I looked at this rock and I said, yeah, I was guided straight to the rock immediately. And it was quite a large rock, like beautiful shape, solid rock. And I sat in that rock for most of my life, just looking into a river. And I realized over time that this, not just the rock, but there was beings in the forest that I was connecting to. There was one being called Trina. She was a fairy goddess, but that's another day, it's another story. But anyway, they were taking me into another dimension because sometimes I'd fall asleep on the rock, and I'd fall off the rock. But I realized what had happened one day when I went in, the rock was gone, just went missing. And I went, oh my God, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. It was early one morning, I was with my dog, and the rock was taken. And I looked, and I was just in shock for a while. I stood where the rock was taken because it had sort of left a mole in the ground. I stood there for a minute, and I got a download immediately that the rock was taking. They took the rock. And so I started walking in the forest, and I was guided to this tree that fell in the forest, and there was a rock under the tree, different rock completely. So I sat in this rock and I got comfortable, just like the chair I'm sitting in now, and I felt at home, and I said, okay, this is my new rock. And I used that rock just to relax and to meditate and to connect with myself and what was going on around me. But I came across Jim Charles around 212, and I wasn't looking for Jim. I was just guided towards him. And um, in one of our challenging sessions, I connect to a few beings. My main guide is Ranturus Voluntrius, and he comes from Antares in the Scorpion constellation, and he is my higher self. So Jim immediately said to me, there's a being here who wants to connect with you. Kin is his name. So he introduced me to Kin. So as we moved on, I asked Ranturus. Ranturus changed his name over a few years because he felt that I was ready for the information that they needed to give me at that time. When he met me first, I wasn't. But anyway, I asked Ranturus what happened to the rock in the forest. And he says, oh, that's an interesting question. So in my channeling session with Jim, he came back and he said, they took the rock. And I says, who? He says, your star family took the rock out of the forest. I says, really? And he said, yes. I says, why? I said, I've been sitting on that rock for years. He said they took the rock because there was an energy in the rock affecting their connection with you.
Mm.
And I said, why did they leave it so long? Like, I'd been on it for years before I went missing. Oh, the time was right for them to take the rock. I said, was I sitting on the rock when they took it? And he said, oh, that's another good question. So he was speaking to someone on the side in the channeling state, and he came back and he said, no, this time you weren't on the rock, but there was times where you were sitting on the rock and he took you and he brought you back and set you back on the rock. And that sort of put everything into place for me, because there was times I would wake up and I would be asleep beside the rock, where I would actually, when he would bring me back down, sit me on the rock, I would be sort of in still that trance state. I would fall off the rock and I would wake up. I felt at the time that I was just at the falling asleep and I would fall off the rock. But he says, no, that was them bringing you back to the rock, like, and sitting you there. But they took the rock. But you found another rock, which is, you're quite happy on that rock now, which I am, and the rock is still there, and I still visit that rock when I'm in the forest. But just on your discussions there on channeling, which I find really, really interesting, like everything that you've said resonates with me, like, because I have had a relationship with kin for over 6,500 years, which is interesting. And they've been different incarnations and different realities. But this one is really interesting, like, and he says to me that, like, it wasn't actually him. There's a being that Jim Charles channels called Kerr. And she brought to me early that I was going to channel, and there was no way was I buying into that. I was not going to channel. My mind wasn't allowing me to go there, like, because I felt I wasn't able, number one. I hadn't got the ability, I hadn't got the connection, and I put all these doubts in front of me where I sort of shut myself down emotionally and I wasn't sort of going there. But I followed a lot of channelers around the world because I had an interest, like, and it was only, when I had worked with different races down through the years. The Octarians were one of them, and I've had different implants put into my body that would support my channeling, which I thought was interesting as well, like, And I remember, I leave it with this. I was asked a question by Ranturus in a channeling state. And he asked me, he says to me, and this is after I had known him for maybe, I'd say our relationship um, had opened up. I was about 5 years connecting with Jim, or with Ranturus through Jim Charles on and off. And he asked me a question and he says to me, are you ready? And I says, ready for what? Well, he says, we're not going to push you in any way, but we're going to support you while you are on Earth. But there was agreements that you made before you came into the physical body. And one of the agreements was that you would channel on Earth, along with other modalities, but your channeling was the main one, like, And I says, okay. And I answered the question and I said, yes, I am ready. He said, that's okay, that's fine. I said, what does that mean for me? Well, he said, that's going to be a bit of a game changer, he said, because we are now going to work closely with you. And it's interesting what you said there. During your conversations, or you're responding to Karen, you spoke about they. There wasn't only one being, there was many, like, you know. And they had said to me that, Renturas had said to me, there's different beings connecting with you. You may not be aware of it, but they are supporting you at this time, not just to open up your channeling abilities, but to come forward as a representative of the Galactic Federation of Light. And he used the word ambassador. So my mind completely doubted that, Peter. I wasn't ready to accept that. But over time, I have to say, I became more in tune with myself, not with the beings that were coming forward. I came more in tune with my vibration and my frequency. And slowly the door opened where I was ready to accept that, yes, this is going to happen. How it's going to happen, I'm not sure. And I had hundreds of questions for Renturis in the channeling state through Jim Charles. And one of them was mainly, can we do it this way, Renturis? And Renturis would laugh and he'd say, not really. Like, you know, it's going to open up in a way that you may not feel it, you may not understand it. He said it's actually happening now, and it's happened before you've asked that question, because we have come in your conversations and we have watched your response to that, where you would pause and you would question, well, I didn't actually say that. You wouldn't verbally say it to the person you're speaking to, but it would come into your awareness. You would say, I didn't actually say that. And you would carry on in the conversation with the person you're having. So it's going to happen, he says. But he said, because you have agreed, that has given us the opportunity. And he says, in that, he says, we will work closely. Now, he said, there's many different races, including myself, but we will work closely with you that will allow you to get to a point where you will feel comfortable within yourself. And something that was said also, and might have been by a member that's here today or yourself, about getting out of your way. And Renturas had pointed that out to me on numerous occasions. Just move out of your way, like, and in doing so, you will allow yourself to get to that point where you will feel confident within yourself by just verbalizing something. He had said to me as well, also on one or two occasions, he said, just start talking. Just start talking. We're going to come through. We're going to come through in your conversations, like, you know. So that is really what I wanted to share, because and you took me to that point, and I thank you for that, like, you know, because there was a lot of my story really that I sort of could not remember, because I was so excited having this relationship with Anturus Volantrius off planet. Like, I was quite fascinated with this, that I have this friend that's been connecting with me for the last 6,000 odd years, like in different incarnations. So it's quite amazing that I'm sort of now at this point, really, and we're now at 2025, like, and I really have got to that comfortable place within myself that I've accepted that I am a conscious channel, like, you know, and there's no doubt about it. Like, you know, that's sort of, I've no fears, I've no doubts. It's just getting into that tune, that frequency, and that vibration, and it allows me to connect, like, to Renturas, and there's other beings there also. But as I said, Renturas would be my main man, like, you know, that sort of way. So thank you very much for allowing me to share that update. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. I made
Yeah.
a couple of notes as you were talking here.
Yeah.
This idea of just start talking. I use that occasionally. I'm, watching the client before they channel, and I'm watching the eye movements, and sometimes the mouth is beginning to move. And I tell them, listen, I'm going to ask you some questions that require a yes or a no answer, and just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. And so I'll ask things like, is there a being here? Is it a being of the light? Have you been with so-and-so before? Are you here to help her with healing or whatever? And, you get this yes, 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 no. And then would you be of a civilization or race that I might know? Yes. Would it be Palladians? No. Which would it be? And then it's no longer yes or no. They have to give me a word, Palladian or whatever. And are you a group or are you a single individual? And so we're beginning to get a conversation going. But yes, just blurt out whatever. Don't judge whether it's right or wrong. Just first thing that comes to mind. Let's hear it. Yeah, good technique.
The implants that I mentioned in my body were working on my synapses on my nervous system because, as I said, I was quite fragile when I come getting myself into that frame of mind that there's a possibility this could open up. So they said that these are going to help, which they did, and they allowed me to come comfortable. Was I aware that they were there? Up to that point, no. Was there any on-off switch when I began to channel? No, there was nothing like that. My whole sort of idea when I watched Jim Charles in the first place was, oh my God, is it actually possible that this is real? Not that I doubted it. And then when it came on board with me, I went, okay, it's going to be slightly different. And I had this idea, and I was coming from an egotistic sort of approach, really, which was okay, that I wanted to be done this way. And Renters explained to me on numerous occasions, no, it's not going to work that way. We're going to work with you. We're going to reword the mind. He didn't actually make that statement. He said, we're going to strip you to the bone and rebuild you. That's exactly what he said. And we're going to take you to that place where you're going to allow yourself to be comfortable within your own vessel. And the vibration and frequency will come forward, So it was really, really interesting, Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to, I'm just also open up to anyone else that has a question, but and there were some questions in the chat, though I don't know that they're something you can answer. Do you know much about if there's certain physical characteristics, like for instance, if someone's a channeler of a Pleiadian, for instance, do they have certain characteristics that you see as a through line for channelers of Pleiadians, or is it sort of do you know what I'm trying to ask you? Is there
Yeah.
is there a certain type that channels a certain type
Yeah.
that you noticed?
I would say most of the time.
Huh?
Yeah. I would say most of the time, absolutely no.
Okay.
However,
there's always an exception.
yes, we're all hybrids, as you probably know.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is we have all likely had incarnations on other planets and in other realms,
Mhm.
not always physical. And we have aspects of ourselves currently in other dimensions and realms.
Right.
I think, well, I've been told that my soul has incarnated more in the Pleiades than it has on planet Earth. So it's fair to say I am more Palladian than I am human. And many channelers are curious about that. So I asked the question. And yes, indeed, they have predominantly been Arcturian or whatever. The only clue that I have that they may not be human is sometimes they report they just don't feel like they fit in. They feel odd man out sometimes.
Mhm.
They play a team sport, for example, and they're just kind of on the sidelines. They're not really engaged. And that's simply because they're having a hard time acclimatizing to being a human. They're predominantly something else. And in this experience, they wanted to be human. But really, Karen, no, I don't get any clues as to what they might be and what they might channel. But I can sometimes get clues that they may not be predominantly human.
Yeah, understood. Okay. Yeah, it makes me wonder too, like, have you met any beings or any humans that are actually saying, no, I am from the Pleiades, but they're not. Like, have you met anybody who claims to be a walk-in?
No.
Okay.
I know somebody, or I know of somebody, she doesn't know that I know this, who the Palladians have told me she is a Palladian. And she is in one of our systems in another country, not yours, not mine. And she's in a fairly significant position in the legal system. And she's doing some great things. She's a Palladian, and she didn't know it until she was about age 12 or so, and then they told her. And she fully knows she's a Palladian. Whereas I didn't know that. I don't feel Palladian. I played hockey, football, chased girls, did all the usual things.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, because there's a lot of people who I always wonder, like, there's certain people that I've seen in my life, and I don't want to say I think they're alien, but I would look at them and say, no, they're elven. They're, they definitely have that kind of sprightly being about them. And they just are. Their behaviors are, their tendencies are, even though they were born to human parents, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe their parents are elven as well. I didn't get a good look at them, and maybe they're choosing to be living a human incarnated life, but so definitely not typical human, if that makes sense.
Well, you're psychic, and you can likely tune into being better than most people. Secondly, you're a channeler. Your vibration is higher, so you're more aware. So yes, I would say high vibrational humans will pick up on that. I know one channeler who will look at a child and maybe pick one out of a group and say, "You're not from here, are you?" And the little kid will answer, "That's right." And and they're not talking about town or city. Yeah, so some people on Earth now are just more sensitive and more able to tune into an individual and detect that, yeah, they're not from here, and maybe even detect where they are from predominantly.
I just have to tell you something quite funny. In our YouTube chat, there's a woman called Wendy who is a big light language channeler, and she's not the person do you know her? Wendy from Language of Lights? No.
Yeah.
Not Wendy Napotalino, but another Wendy. But she is probably truly elven as well. I've always thought she was elven, and I've never discussed it with her. But whenever we were talking about it, she goes, "I resonate with that," and I'm like, "You better, because you're definitely." She's laughing, but she looks it. You see it in her face. You see it in her being. Her physical body is lithe, and she just has that. She embodies it in her physical form. Wendy Wolf, yeah. I don't know if you know her, but
No, but you would have to know if and what they might look like before you could identify that, where the average human would probably look at that person and just say, well, that's a variation of humanity. Everybody's different.
That's true. Yeah. But I never told her but I've thought that since the first moment I ever encountered her and talked to her face to face. So, and that's been like almost 15 years now, I think. Yeah.
You and Christy just brought up something from the recent book. I did an interview with the elementals. So we talked about elves and fairies and such. And we also did one with the Sasquatch.
Wow.
And the Sasquatch was in my newsletter. I have a monthly newsletter, and it came out yesterday for July. And the interview I had with the Sasquatch is there. And they would certainly have comments, Christy, about sitting on rocks and embracing trees and things like that. That's their domain. They're king of that.
What did you find surprising or interesting about Sasquatch? Had that been the first time that you had encountered them, or?
It's funny, there's a channeler in British Columbia who lives near where a number of Sasquatch purport to be. And she goes walking in the forest with her husband, and she seems to pick up little signs. They leave pebbles and branches in symbolic form.
Hmm.
If you're not aware of it, you think it's just random, but if you see enough of them and you think about Sasquatch, they begin to make sense. She sent me a book by a guy who wrote about the Sasquatch. Never quite encountered them, but physically, he believes he did in many other ways. And then Karen Ashby in Stouffville, just north of me, began to channel them one time. So in Karen channeling them, we met one who I usually say, "Can you give me a name that I might address you by?" And he was there with his son, according to Karen, because she could see him as well as channel him. And it was father son. So he said, "Call me Dad." So we did. And Dad said, "Look, I want to talk to Mary from British Columbia. I want to talk to Karen, and I want to talk to Anne Till from Paris, France. 3 channelers who have all worked with me." So I convened a little gathering or online gathering, and Karen brought Dad in, and he had some messages for us. I wrote up an article after I interviewed him, and well, it's in the book. So I guess forget it.
Look on your website,
I'm sorry.
peterhdennis.com. I said you can order the book through your website, peterhdennis.com, correct?
Actually, the books are on the website, and they show the series Pathways to Higher Pathways to what do we call it? Pathways to Higher Consciousness.
Okay.
And I describe it as a transformative series exploring the journey of spiritual awakening, the expansion of human potential, and the profound wisdom available through the channeling process. I go on to explain a little bit further, but that's on the website, the pages on books. And you can see that if you click on the books, you get more detail about them, some of the reviews, that kind of thing. But there's also a link to Amazon where you can buy them there. Can't buy them from me unless you show up physically, and we deal with paperbacks.
Okay, well, we're getting close to be out of time, but Christy had another question, so I want to let him go ahead and ask you. And I want to turn that over to him for just a moment. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, just want to share something with Peter. I'm going back to around 2016. In my meditations, I was seeing an eye looking at me, and it was an extraterrestrial eye. I would come in on the left and go out on the right. And I just had to get into that sort of deep alpha state of a meditation, and I would see it, and it would just last for a few seconds, and it would disappear. But in a channeling session, I asked through with Jim Charles, I asked Renturis, I said, "Who is this being that's looking at me in my meditations?" And he said, "He has been waiting for you to come forward. And his name is Bick, and he is part of the Tree Collective that is coming to Earth at this time to support the Tree Collective here, because they're aware the situation the Tree Collective has on planet Earth as we speak." And I said, "Oh, that's really interesting, yeah." But as soon as I asked the question, Bick allowed me to see him and photograph him, and I have numerous photographs of Bick. He appears in my back garden. Now I don't see him when I take I don't see him with the naked eye to take the photograph. I just get this what would you say? We'd say a download to take a photograph, and I take the photograph into nothing. But Bick appears in my garden, and he's a quite unusual shape. I would actually describe him as like a cereal wheat, like a cereal that you would have in the morning. He's sort of a funny shape, but there's many different faces of different beings in this shape, where he appears in different parts of the garden, and still does up to this day. I have a lot of images that I've taken of Bick, but Yeah, so it's interesting that we're speaking on the elementals and the stones and wherever else. There is a beautiful fairy goddess called Trina that a friend of mine channels in South Africa, and she channels Trina, and Trina has come forward for me on numerous occasions and explained our relationship in the forest when we're there. So, of course, as we know, the forest is alive with the elementals and many beautiful different beings wanting to connect with us, like, for various reasons, either for updates or for whatever, So, yeah, thanks for allowing me to share that again. Thank you, Peter.
Sure. Yeah, the latest book has an article on the consciousness of trees. And one of the interesting things about them, or many interesting things about them, there are some new trees, new mother trees that are coming now. And they're going to support other trees, and the growth of trees generally is going to be much faster than it has been in the past. That's the word I get. The other thing that's interesting, there's a channeler who told me this, and another one did too. But this one channeler says she sits on a bench and there's a tree behind her. And she will talk to the tree and tell it, it's a beautiful tree, I really love you. And that tree will move its branch and caress her face. Others have told me that they can embrace a tree and hold it, and the leaves will start to flutter. And they've checked it out. It's not the wind, it's the tree reacting. So, yeah, the article on trees, they're amazing. They're in touch with each other across oceans. It's they're incredible. Where did Karen go?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay. You're invisible.
I turned off my thing because I wanted to put something up for you to show you. So I had to add a background to my thing. But did you want to remark on something, Wendy?
Yeah, actually, when you guys were talking about Sasquatch and chatting with the trees and rocks and mountains, so that's been in my experience. I've had so many different metaphysical aspects, but the Sasquatch story that I wanted to share was when my grandson was 4, he was staying the night, and the night prior we had a skunk outside, and the next morning he was saying, "Ooh, gee, it really stinks in here." But we had channeled Sasquatch for a couple of months, and they had been connecting in with us. And they said, well, if you want to invite our energy, they said, don't necessarily invite us into your house per se, because we can be very, have a very strong odor. And so anyways, so I said, oh, yes, I would love to have this because it's a beautiful, loving, kind of the Sasquatch that had come through was a very, motherly energy. And so he was telling me it's so stinky in here, Gigi. What is it? I'm like, I don't smell anything. And so I said, honey, I don't know. And I opened the window and I was like, was it the skunk? And no, we couldn't smell that skunk smell anywhere around. So I'm like, I don't know what he's smelling. So then a couple of days later, I was sitting at my desk and just, kind of in one of those daydream moments. And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it smelled like swamp water, like when you go and it's kind of that decay and, kind of that really wet, decomposing grass. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? And then the word Sasquatch like popped into my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, here he is with psychic smell at this young age. And, the Sasquatch wanted him to like have this experience at this young age so that he would have this early awareness as he was, getting older in his life. But I have had that connection. I know that when we did our first conference in Mount Shasta, the mountain was calling me. Like it was literally sending me picture images in my third eye where it'd be like, here's a photo. And then I'd be like, where is that? And then I'd look it up and I was like looking at like tall mountains or just looking at mountains. And I'm like, there you are. And then as soon as I saw that mountain, then I was like, that's Mount Shasta. So it's been very interesting to see, how the different energies connect in and the galactic beings. But I do think that for sure right now that they're all working together as, Earth is raising its frequency. And I know the question was asked earlier, like, is there a particular being that is like, wants to come through, like to work with somebody? And really, they'll work with anybody. You just have to have that open heart and that resonance. And it's when you are a frequency match to them that's when they're that particular group or, soul family or however you want to call them, reaches out and connects. And so, yeah, you might be connecting more with nature and really, getting that fairy energy. I mean, I know that, trees and bushes and shrubs and, little animals and that are always reaching out. And I've experienced that with the tree as well. And I'm sure you guys have too, where there's no breeze and you're like looking at a tree and the tree's kind of doing this, like it's just, and you're like, okay, the wind is not blowing. Why is that tree moving? It's kind of like saying hello. So that's very fun. But Peter, I think it would be lovely for you to talk about how you end up, because I know we went through this process together as you're getting channelers.
1 second, because Peter was supposed to go now, because he was going to be leaving now.
Oh, I did not know that. I'm sorry.
Well, I got a couple more minutes.
Okay. All right.
Pick up this group at the top of the hour, I think. Carry on anyway. If it gets noisy, I'll go out and referee.
But I was going to say how you end up selecting your channelers is when you're writing your books, as you're bringing this information forward.
I'm not sure I can answer this very well when the part of it is, I guess I just review in my mind what I think are the most interesting characters and just pick them. I don't pick the channelers as much as the beings they channel. That's the essence of the book. It's to introduce these beings and their messages. So the channeler is just the means, you might say. And I think I'm probably in many ways guided to doing that. I had this book, I had 19 of them for the longest time. And then I kind of went into not a writer's block exactly, but wanted to get the 20th, and I couldn't figure quite who to chase for it. But then along came the Druids. Oh, I gotta have them. And the Druids, apparently Jesus, as a youngster, his grandmother was a Druid. And so more like a teenager, I guess, he spent time with the Druids and learned a fair bit about healing from them. As they disclosed it to me anyway. But no, I don't pick the channelers as much. Now, what I do is I try to make sure I don't pick a channeler more than twice. So, like I could go to Genevieve Tager and she can do 60 or 70 different characters. It could be a one stop. But no, I try to get as many channelers in as I can to manage the beings that I want to hear from.
Interesting. Okay. So are you okay did you want to continue? Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Maybe you should talk about your website and how people get in touch with you and how they can get your books. You said a little bit, but just sort of do your own little self-promotion at the moment so people know how to keep this conversation with you going.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Karen. Yeah, the website is peterhdennis.com, 2 N's Dennis, and it outlines what I do. Doesn't get a lot into my journey sort of thing. It's just what I'm doing today. It features the channelers. There's one page of channelers, there's a page of books, there's a page of links. If a channeler has a website and would like to be on my links page, let me know. I'll talk to you first and make sure you're a channeler, and then you can be on the links page. I do have 35, I think it is, channelers on one page where I have interviewed most of them. They have done some videos with me, and I invite any other channelers. You don't have to learn. Yeah, Wendy's there. You don't have to learn channeling from me to be on that page. I just want to promote channelers. So if you're on that page, you're also on my YouTube channel and my Spreaker podcast channel and Instagram. So you get a little exposure those ways. Otherwise, yeah, the books page, just click on the books and it'll guide you to where you can order them. So Peter at Peter H. Dennis will find me. And I think that's really it, Karen.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The last thing that we do is we always ask the guest if they would do a sort of blessing for us to end. And I would like to ask you if you wanted to. You do light language, you said.
Yes, I have no clue what it means. Maybe Wendy can interpret. I view it as a way of maybe helping me get aside and it kind of preparatory for oral channeling.
Well, I'll tell you, Peter, I've worked with several channelers who do light language and say, I can't interpret. And the secret that I've discovered is you have to just set the intention and then just wait a moment and you'll start to hear the ideas and thoughts come into your mind and you can start to interpret your own light language. So in the joys of teaching and helping people learn to connect to themselves and learn to connect to the information they're bringing through, that has worked. And I've seen several people be successful with that. So just set the intent ahead of the light language and then ask for the interpretation after, and then just listen for what you get. It'll be beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, I've not done this in public, but mi kakaka mama nene mele ki kapaka te ke poko te ele ke mama ne si ki kapaka te le mene ke te. You know, I can ramble on like that for a long time, but
Well, it is too about creating a sort of energy vortex stream and allowing the sound tones, that are flowing through you to create the energy that you want. So if your intention was just to give us a blessing, I'm sure that was a beautiful one. Yeah.
well, in plain English, many blessings to all of you. And thank you very much for having me here today. This was enjoyable.
Well, thank you. It was lovely. We'd love to have you back again. Always nice to have someone come in who's got a perspective that's maybe not always explored and not always talked about, but also very, very important and valid. I put a picture up for you. If you can see my background, what's in my background of the clouds there. That was taken in 2024 in Myrtle Beach one morning. I walk every morning on the beach and that's
The book also has the consciousness of water.
beautiful.
And that's an interesting one because it comes across as so forgiving for what we've done to it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a very love-based little essay.
We talk about in India, we talk about the Ganges River and that she is always flowing. She's always the same, but always different. And she's always giving because she's giving to the crops. She's providing a food for the animals that live in her. She's cleansing you spiritually. She's always giving, always the same, but always changing. And that's really the nature of water, to just be continual, like the sun that shines on everyone. It's always giving, always creating. So
I got the central sun. I haven't got our sun yet.
okay, well, that's your next journey to the sun, to talk to the sun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter, for just a beautiful, beautiful exchange, and it's been lovely having you. For everyone who's watching, next week, Jim Charles will be back after his 2-week vacation, so we'll be happy to welcome him back. And if you're interested in the pendulum class, which will be on August 23rd, you can write to classes@hucolo.com, classes@hucolo.com, am I right? Or hucolo.org. Now I've forgotten. Try both. But you'll get through. And once again, Peter, so lovely to talk to you, and tell everyone and wish everyone a beautiful